Okay, so get this. At just 10 years old, this person scored a 228 on the Stanford-Binet IQ test.
Wow.
Yeah, that's Marilyn versus Savant officially holding the record for the highest IQ ever recorded. I mean, can you imagine starting life like that?
It's certainly a remarkable thing, and you'd think with a score like that, she'd have, a pretty clear path to success.
Right, like it's all set.
But Marilyn Savant's story, it's anything but ordinary. Really, it's a story of resilience, challenging what people think is normal and what it even means to be intelligent.
Yeah, when I was going through the stuff you sent, that really jumped out at me. I mean, here she is with this amazing intellect, but she faces these huge hurdles right from the beginning.
Right out of the gate.
It really makes you think, was this like a gift or a burden?
Oh, well, that's what's so interesting about her story. This incredible IQ, while obviously a gift, also set her apart from everyone else.
Right.
There are even stories about her being kept out of a science class just because she was the only girl there.
No way.
Can you imagine that being told you're too smart to fit in?
It's almost like being punished for your potential. And this is back in the 1950s.
Exactly.
It makes you appreciate the social climate back then. So did this early experience of being an outsider shape her later choices?
It's hard to say for sure, but you can definitely see a pattern of her challenging expectations.
Yeah.
Like her decision to leave Washington University, where she was studying philosophy, to help with her family business. It seems like a sidestep, but it actually gave her the financial independence to pursue writing.
So it wasn't her rejecting academics, but more like a strategic move.
Exactly.
Wow, that's pretty insightful for someone in their early 20s.
Yeah.
And speaking of her writing, this is where things get really interesting, especially with that whole Monty Hall problem thing.
Ah, yes, the Monty Hall problem. Now, I know you're familiar with the basics, but what's often forgotten is how intensely people reacted to her answer.
Really?
Thousands of letters, many from mathematicians and academics, accusing her of being wrong, illogical, even calling her a disgrace to women.
Wow. I had no idea it was that bad. It's mind-boggling that the smartest woman in the world was ridiculed for a probability problem.
Right.
It's like people couldn't accept her answer, so they attacked her instead.
Exactly. And that's where her intellectual rigor really shines. She didn't just brush off the criticism. She methodically and patiently explained the logic behind her solution, even using computer simulations to prove her point.
Really?
It took time, but even her biggest critics had to admit she was right.
That's incredible. Talk about standing your ground. It makes you think, did that experience of being publicly challenged change how she shared her knowledge?
I think it made her even more committed to promoting clear thinking.
Yeah.
You can see it in her Ask Marilyn column, where she's always pushing readers to think logically, to question assumptions, and not be afraid to think differently.
That reminds me of something you said before about her downplaying the whole IQ test thing. Why was that so important to her?
Well, I think she saw the limits of boiling intelligence down to a single number. It's like trying to define a person just by their height or their weight. You're missing the whole picture. She actually said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that intelligence is about how you use your mind to navigate the world, to analyze information, and to have the guts to speak your truth, even when it's not popular.
So for her, intelligence wasn't a fixed score. It was a process of engaging with the world and using your brain to problem solve. That's a powerful message, especially now when we're drowning in tests and rankings.
Right.
It makes me wonder, did she have specific advice on how to cultivate this more well-rounded view of intelligence?
She was a big believer in critical thinking and always pushed people to engage in thoughtful debate. She thought challenging your own beliefs, being open to new perspectives, and admitting when you're wrong were key for intellectual growth.
It's like she was saying, don't be afraid to be wrong, because that's how you learn.
Exactly.
I love that. It's so refreshing, in this culture of needing to be right all the time.
It's a reminder that real intelligence isn't about memorizing facts or getting the highest score. It's about thinking creatively and learning from your mistakes.
And she certainly had her share of those, especially with that whole Monty Hall thing.
Yeah.
But what's inspiring is she never let those setbacks hold her back. She used them to sharpen her thinking and prove the power of perseverance.
Absolutely. Her story proves that resilience isn't about avoiding failure.
Right.
It's about how you bounce back from it. And Marilyn Savant was great at bouncing back stronger and wiser each time.
It makes you think, did she ever talk about the pressure of being called the smartest woman in the world?
From what I read and what you sent over, she actually found that label to be a burden.
Really?
She felt like it created unrealistic expectations and overshadowed her achievements.
Right.
She was a successful writer, a businesswoman, and a huge advocate for critical thinking, but the media always focused on her IQ score.
It's almost like that number became her whole identity, which is ironic considering how much she stressed the multifaceted nature of intelligence.
Exactly. It shows how we're so quick to label people and put them in boxes that we miss how rich and complex they really are.
And Marilyn Savant, despite being given maybe the most limiting label of all, the smartest woman in the world, she managed to break free from those constraints and forge her own path.
That's a good way to put it.
It's a powerful reminder that labels don't define us, and our real potential is in embracing our individuality and using our talents to make a difference.
That's beautiful, and it speaks to her lasting impact. She wasn't just brilliant, she was courageous, compassionate, and really committed to using her mind to empower others.
It makes you wonder what the world would be like if we all embraced that kind of intellectual humility, that willingness to challenge ourselves and have real discussions, even with people who disagree with us.
It's an interesting thought, isn't it? To imagine a world where critical thinking is valued more than just blindly accepting things, where being curious is celebrated, and where we're all trying to learn and grow from each other.
That sounds like a world Marilyn Savant would have supported.
Definitely.
And it's a world I think we should all strive to create. So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into Marilyn Savant's life, what are some of the big takeaways? What can we learn from her and apply to our own lives?
I think one of the most important things is embracing our unique talents and perspectives, even if they don't fit in with what society expects. Her journey reminds us that real brilliance can come from thinking differently, questioning things, and never stopping being curious.
You know, going through all this with you, her resilience really stood out to me. She faced so many challenges, but she never let them hold her back.
Absolutely. It shows the importance of always learning and being humble about what. She never let her IQ define her or limit her growth. She was always open to new ideas and always wanted to understand the world better.
It's like she was saying, don't let anyone put you in a box.
Right.
And don't be afraid to push your boundaries. That really resonates with me, especially in a world that's so obsessed with labels.
I think that's a big part of her legacy. Marilyn Savant challenged us to look beyond those simple labels and see the complexity of human intelligence. She showed us that true intelligence isn't about having all the answers. It's about being open to new possibilities, questioning your own beliefs, and never stopping learning.
And having the courage to stand up for what you believe in, even when everyone's against you, like with the Monty Hall problem.
Yeah.
She had so much criticism, but she stuck to her guns, and in the end, she was right.
It shows her integrity and commitment to truth and logic, and it reminds us that even when we feel alone, our voices still matter.
So to bring this back to our listeners, what do you think is the most important thing we can take away from Marilyn Savant's life?
I think it's a call to action, a challenge for each of us to embrace our own brilliance, to think critically, to always be learning, and to have the guts to stand up for what we believe in, even when it's hard.
Well said. That's quite a legacy. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the life of Marilyn Savant. We hope it sparked your curiosity and inspired you to embrace your potential to change the world. Until next time.